Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 321, Itachi and Orochimaru. Shin returned to the land of whirlpools and began instructing Karen and Hinata. He paid little attention to events in the outside world. If anything truly significant happened, either White Zetsu or the third Reikage puppet, now controlled by Gyuki, would inform him. Meanwhile, Itachi Uchiha, having defected from Konoha, successfully evaded pursuit for several days and joined the Akatsuki. Obito had informed Nagato, and Pain brought Itachi into the organization. Obito also revealed to Nagato that Itachi was a spy. Nagato initially wanted to eliminate Itachi immediately to avoid future trouble. However, Obito dissuaded him. After all the effort he put into recruiting Itachi, killing him before he even contributes to the Akatsuki? Unacceptable. Even if Itachi had to be killed eventually, it should only happen after he had outlived his usefulness. Currently, Itachi was still valuable. Obito coveted his combat strength. Besides, knowing Itachi was a spy, if they still couldn't handle him, they'd be pathetic. So Itachi-kun has joined the Akatsuki. Orochimaru observed with a sinister smile. Itachi Uchiha glanced impassively at Orochimaru. They were somewhat acquainted from before. Orochimaru had taken an interest in the exceptionally talented young Itachi, even considering him a potential rival to Shin Uzumaki. To annihilate an entire clan at 13, especially the renowned Uchiha clan. I'm quite curious about your strength, Kakuzu remarked, sizing up Itachi. The Uchiha clan was legendary. Itachi's ability to wipe them out spoke volumes about his power. Even in its weakened state, the Uchiha clan was still considered one of the strongest in the shinobi world. I don't want to see infighting among the Akatsuki's core members. Pain intervened, sensing Kakuzu's intention to test Itachi. Pain didn't care about the expendable recruits absorbed into the Akatsuki, like Kakuzu's previous partners. Before Haiden joined, Kakuzu had gone through countless partners, most of whom he killed himself. Pain hadn't interfered. Those members weren't considered core. They could be replaced at any time. But Kakuzu and Itachi were different. They were valuable tools. They couldn't be damaged, at least not before fulfilling their purpose. Kakuzu suppressed his impulse. Honestly, he only wanted to test Itachi out of boredom. Since killing the daimyo's son and Hiruzen's son, Kakuzu's situation had become precarious. He rarely took bounties from the black market anymore. Even after several years, Konoha ninjas still pursued him relentlessly. Orochimaru looked disappointed. He really wanted to gauge Itachi's strength. Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. Orochimaru coveted it greatly. He had always desired the Sharingan. Obtaining the Rinnegan was difficult, perhaps impossible, so Orochimaru settled for the next best thing, the Mangekyo Sharingan. Shin Uzumaki once said that if brothers both awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, transplanting a sibling's eyes can evolve it into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi Uchiha has a younger brother, doesn't he? Orochimaru thought to himself. This thought intensified Orochimaru's desire for Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. However, attacking Itachi would surely provoke Pain's wrath, forcing Orochimaru to defect from the Akatsuki. He hesitated, weighing his options. Orochimaru, what are you thinking? Sasori suddenly asked. His instincts told him Orochimaru was plotting something sinister. Sasori and Orochimaru were partners, but they disliked each other intensely. If not for Pain's authority, they would have likely fought already. What I'm thinking is none of your concern. Orochimaru turned and left. He had made his decision. After Orochimaru departed, Sasori looked at Itachi. You'd best be careful around Orochimaru. My instincts tell me he means you harm. Itachi was momentarily taken aback. He hadn't expected Sasori to warn him. However, Itachi had already sensed Orochimaru's ill intentions. "Thank you." Although Itachi appeared indifferent, he still thanked Sasori for the well-intentioned warning. "Don't thank me. I just despise that damn snake." Sasori's warning wasn't out of goodwill towards Itachi, but purely out of his hatred for Orochimaru. If he could thwart Orochimaru's schemes, Sasori would gladly do so. It seems the Akatsuki isn't exactly harmonious internally, Itachi thought, watching Sasori leave. He wasn't wrong. An organization composed mostly of missing nin, how could it be harmonious? Only Pain's immense strength kept the unruly members in check. If Pain weren't strong enough, the Akatsuki would have disbanded long ago. "You'll stay here for now. We'll notify you when there's a mission," Pain instructed Itachi. "Yes, leader." After Itachi acknowledged the order, Pain left. Itachi then returned to the quarters Pain had prepared for him. He felt utterly exhausted. Overusing the Mangekyo Sharingan a few days ago, the strain of Susanoo, and the relentless pursuit over the past few days had taken their toll. Konoha's pursuit had been genuine, they truly wanted to kill Itachi. The pursuers were Danzo's root ninja. Danzo wanted Shirsue's other eye, which Itachi now possessed. Furthermore, if Danzo could kill Itachi, he'd acquire another pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. How could Danzo not covet such powerful eyes? As Itachi arrived at his quarters, he found Orochimaru waiting inside. Orochimaru emanated a dangerous aura, his intentions were clearly hostile. Itachi immediately became wary. Facing Orochimaru, a veteran Kage-level shinobi and one of the Sannin, Itachi couldn't afford to be careless. "Nice to meet you, Itachi-kun." Orochimaru's greedy, snake-like eyes fixed on Itachi. He licked his lips, a perverse smile spreading across his face, sending chills down one's spine. Chapter 322, Orochimaru Defects from the Akatsuki. Itachi Uchiha looked coldly at Orochimaru. "Orochimaru, what are you doing here?" he asked flatly. "It seems Itachi-kun doesn't welcome me." Orochimaru observed Itachi's icy expression, then licked his lips again. "Itachi-kun, care to chat outside?" Itachi considered for a moment, then nodded. Orochimaru was overjoyed. Honestly, Orochimaru hadn't expected Itachi to agree to go outside. He had been prepared to fight him right here. "Then follow me." Orochimaru walked out, and Itachi followed without hesitation. Despite knowing Orochimaru's ill intentions, Itachi still went along. The two left the Akatsuki base and arrived at a nearby forest. The sky was overcast, a light drizzle falling, a characteristic feature of the land of rain, where it rained almost daily. "Itachi, I'm surprised you followed me out here." Orochimaru turned back, greedily eyeing Itachi's eyes, wishing he could pluck them out right now. "What is your purpose?" Itachi asked calmly. Despite his weakened state, he remained composed. "Your Sharingan, of course. Once I have your eyes, I'll find a way to help your younger brother awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan in the future. Then, I will possess a pair of eternal Mangekyo Sharingan." Thinking of the immense power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the greedy light in Orochimaru's eyes intensified. Immortality and power. These were the two most important things in Orochimaru's dictionary. He understood that power was necessary for survival. However, Orochimaru prioritized immortality above all else, power came second. "Itachi Uchiha, your talent is exceptional. You would make an excellent vessel." Initially, Orochimaru had planned to kill Itachi and take his Sharingan, but now he changed his mind. He wanted Itachi to become his next host for reincarnation. Itachi, as a vessel, was 100 times better than Kimimaro. "Orochimaru, how do you know the secret to awakening the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan?" Itachi asked, frowning. Even Itachi himself had only learned this by studying countless Uchiha clan texts and deciphering the Uchiha stone tablet. "I don't mind telling you. Shin Uzumaki told me," Orochimaru said casually. "Shin Uzumaki?" Itachi's brow furrowed tightly. Itachi-kun, though you are a genius, compared to Shin Uzumaki, you still fall far short. At the age of 12, he was already invincible in the shinobi world. As Orochimaru spoke, his eyes revealed a mix of envy and jealousy. He too had once been called a genius, but compared to Shin Uzumaki, the gap was immense. At 12, Shin Uzumaki could already dominate the Kage of the major villages. At 12, Orochimaru had only been a chunin. Orochimaru, is sneak attacking the only trick you know? A flash of cold light, a poisonous snake slithering towards Itachi from behind was decapitated. Orochimaru had deliberately talked about Shin Uzumaki to distract Itachi, while secretly controlling the snake to attack. If Itachi hadn't been vigilant enough, he would have fallen for it. How perceptive. You even noticed that. It seems Itachi-kun shouldn't be underestimated. A flicker of disappointment crossed Orochimaru's eyes. He hadn't truly underestimated Itachi, otherwise, he wouldn't have resorted to a sneak attack during their conversation. Since that's the case, let's fight for real. Orochimaru's neck suddenly elongated like a snake's, his mouth opening wide as he lunged to bite Itachi's neck. Seeing Orochimaru's grotesque transformation, Itachi felt a moment of unease but quickly reacted, blocking the attack with his sword. At this point, Orochimaru had already modified his body to the extent that he barely resembled a human anymore. Demonic illusion, shackling stakes technique. Itachi activated his three-tomo Sharingan. The moment their eyes met, Orochimaru's froze. The scene in Orochimaru's vision changed. Everything turned blood red. Giant stakes pierced his limbs, causing excruciating pain and rendering him immobile. A Sharingan genjutsu? Pulling me into an illusionary mental world so easily. Your genjutsu mastery is truly high. Realizing he was caught in a genjutsu, Orochimaru immediately began trying to break free. In the original story, Orochimaru was defeated by this very shackling stakes technique and subsequently left the Akatsuki. But would he be defeated so easily now? Orochimaru proved otherwise. He won't be taken down by a mere genjutsu. Having anticipated Itachi's genjutsu, Orochimaru was prepared. Breaking free from the illusion, Orochimaru spat out a sword from his mouth, the Kusanagi blade. The incredibly sharp Kusanagi blade sliced through Itachi's sword instantly, then extended towards Itachi. Substitution Jutsu. Using the substitution jutsu just in time, Itachi evaded the attack, reappearing on a distant tree branch, his gaze fixed tightly on Orochimaru. Unlike the original story where Orochimaru was defeated by a single genjutsu, this time he hadn't fallen so easily. In fact, as a veteran Kage-level shinobi, how could Orochimaru be defeated by a simple genjutsu? Even if his resistance to genjutsu was poor, it wouldn't be that bad. Besides, Orochimaru hadn't undergone his body transfer reincarnation yet, his spirit hadn't suffered significant damage, and his resistance to genjutsu wasn't weak. Itachi, you can't escape. Orochimaru formed hand seals and unleashed the 10,000 snakes formation. This technique was more akin to a summoning jutsu. Countless snakes surged towards Itachi. Anyone with trypophobia would likely faint at the sight. Even a normal person would probably pass out seeing so many snakes. Orochimaru, you've lost your chance. Itachi remained calm, unafraid. Orochimaru, I told you, infighting among core Akatsuki members is forbidden. Pain's icy voice echoed. Pain had warned him once before. Yet, Orochimaru had immediately disregarded his warning and attacked Itachi. This was a direct challenge to Pain's authority. Pain found out? Orochimaru glanced at Itachi. No wonder he was so calm. This little brat must have planned this. Orochimaru was certain Itachi had somehow alerted Pain. It seems I can no longer stay in the Akatsuki. Orochimaru turned to leave. Pain wouldn't let him off this time. Even just to make an example, Pain would punish him severely. Orochimaru, knowing his situation, chose to defect. Orochimaru, you intend to betray the Akatsuki? Pain's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Pain, I possess research results that Shin Uzumaki needs. If something happens to me, I can't guarantee Shin Uzumaki won't come looking for you. Facing Pain's overwhelming killing intent, Orochimaru remained calm. Though he wasn't Pain's match, Orochimaru was confident he could escape. He used Shin as a shield. If Shin knew Orochimaru was using his name like this, who knows what he'd do. However, Orochimaru did possess research results Shin wanted, specifically, research on the Kagaya clan's Shikatsumiyaku. Chapter 323, A Warning from Shin. Despite facing Pain, Kakuzu, Sasori, and Itachi Uchiha, Orochimaru managed to leave unscathed. Pain remained expressionless, not ordering a pursuit. However, Orochimaru using Shin Uzumaki's name as a threat. Pain wouldn't forget that. Orochimaru had successfully earned Pain's enmity. Orochimaru himself was surprised he'd left so easily. Seems Shin Uzumaki's name carries some weight. He knew he couldn't misuse Shin's name carelessly, otherwise, Shin himself might come looking for trouble. But even if Shin did confront him, Orochimaru wasn't afraid. He was highly confident in his survival abilities. And rightfully so. If there was one cockroach in the Naruto world who simply wouldn't die, it was Orochimaru. Shin learned about Orochimaru's defection from the Akatsuki, including how he'd used Shin's name to threaten Pain. White Zetsu delivered the intel. It considered this a major event and proactively reported it to Shin to avoid trouble. Orochimaru defecting isn't surprising. But using my name? Isn't that just making enemies for me? Though Shin didn't particularly care about making enemies, it was still annoying. I should pay Orochimaru a visit. Shin decided to find Orochimaru, not to settle scores over the name-dropping incident, but to check on the Shikatsumiyaku research. It had been 5 or 6 years since he gave Kagaya Sara's body to Orochimaru. He wondered what results Orochimaru had achieved. Hinata, Karen, keep up your training. I need to leave the land of whirlpools for a bit. Let Kushina and the others know I'll be back soon. Shin informed the 2 girls, who were currently training, then vanished instantly. Shin-sama left so quickly. He didn't even give us a chance to speak. Karen exclaimed. She had wanted to say something, but Shin was already gone. Karen-nichan, should we go back and tell Kushina-nichan and the others? Hinata asked Karen. Okay, let's head back. Karen nodded and took Hinata's hand, walking towards home. Shin left the land of whirlpools. Finding Orochimaru wasn't difficult. He had placed a spatial marker on Orochimaru during their last meeting. Unless Orochimaru used his living corpse reincarnation to switch bodies, Shin could find him anytime. Orochimaru, where are you headed? The voice from behind made Orochimaru, who had just left the land of rain, stop in his tracks. Shin-kun. Are you here to settle accounts? Orochimaru turned around and asked Shin. He appeared calm, but inwardly he was panicking. Unlike facing Pain and the others, where Orochimaru felt danger but was confident he could escape, facing Shin filled him with a sense of inescapable dread. Settle accounts? Perhaps. But that's not important right now. I want to know about the Shikatsumiyaku research I asked you to do. Ah, so it's about that. Orochimaru secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He handed all the research data to Shin. I've found quite a few things, but I haven't figured out the origin of Shikatsumiyaku. Kekkai Genkai are difficult to research. Shin looked through the data Orochimaru had gathered. While Orochimaru might have found useful information, it wasn't what Shin needed. He had asked Orochimaru to research Shikatsumiyaku primarily to see if the data could help him develop the all-killing ash bones. It seemed he would be disappointed. Though, Shin hadn't held high hopes to begin with. Unfortunately, this isn't what I need. Although Orochimaru's data was detailed, it wasn't the information Shin was looking for. Orochimaru, I hope you won't use my name again in the future, Shin said, tossing the data back to Orochimaru. I won't. Orochimaru immediately agreed. He wasn't stupid, he understood this was a warning from Shin, just a verbal one for now. Next time, Shin might resort to action. Where are you going now? Shin asked. To the land of rice paddies. I established a small hidden village there before. I'm heading back now. Orochimaru didn't hide his destination. It wasn't a secret anyway, the Akatsuki likely knew as well. Shin glanced at Orochimaru. He knew the small hidden village Orochimaru mentioned was likely Otogekure, village hidden in sound. Orochimaru, continue your Shikatsumiyaku research. If you achieve any breakthroughs, I'll reward you handsomely. Shin hadn't given up yet. He wanted Orochimaru to continue the research. After all, he wasn't the one putting in the effort. All right. If I have any results, I will inform Shinkuin. Orochimaru naturally wouldn't refuse. Firstly, he intended to continue researching Shikatsumiyaku anyway. Secondly, cooperating with Shin offered some protection. With this connection, the Akatsuki wouldn't dare cause him trouble. Shin then left, returning to the land of whirlpools. Back home, before the others could ask, Shin explained, I went to see Orochimaru about the Shikatsumiyaku research. Did Orochimaru find anything? Tsunade asked Shin curiously. He did find some things, but they're useless to me. I asked him to continue researching. I also warned him not to use my name again. He's just creating enemies for me. Tsunade and the others didn't inquire further. Shin, I have something to discuss. How about I take over teaching Karen and Hinata from now on? Kushina asked, sitting down beside Shin. You teach them? Alright, you can teach Karen. But not Hinata, Shin said after thinking for a moment. Why not? Kushina pressed. Kushina, do you know the gentle fist? Mikoto asked Kushina. Kushina shook her head. Of course, she didn't know the gentle fist. It required the Byakugan, which she lacked. Exactly. So, what could you teach Hinata? You certainly can't teach her the gentle fist, Mikoto said, sipping her tea. Fine. Then I'll focus on teaching Karen. I'm very good at sealing jutsu, Kushina said confidently. She had been learning Fuinjutsu since childhood and was incredibly proficient. Kushina believed that in terms of sealing jutsu, besides Shin, no one could surpass her. Her confidence comes from not having seen the 6 paths, Shibaku Tensei. Once she sees that, she'll know what a truly god-level sealing technique looks like. Actually, I want to train with Shin-sama, Karen muttered under her breath, careful not to let Kushina hear. Chapter 324, Control Kirigakure? Shin arrived at the Hyuga clan ancestral lands with Hinata. The buildings here, remnants from the Warring States period, looked somewhat dilapidated. Although the Hyuga clansmen had made repairs after returning, they hadn't rebuilt everything from scratch, so the place still appeared a bit worn down. Shin had brought Hinata here for a visit, something he'd done several times already. Notably, Hinata now had a younger sister. Hanabi Hyuga had been born. What's happening with Hinata's eyes? Hayashi Hyuga asked Shin. He had noticed something unusual about Hinata's eyes. Within the pure white, there was a faint hint of blue. Though subtle, Hayashi's keen observation hadn't missed it. You have your Hyuga ancestors to thank for that. The change in Hinata's eyes was due to the ocular power of Hamura Otsutsuki's Tensigen. The Tensigen's power was helping Hinata's Byakugan evolve. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, Hinata's eyes would eventually evolve into the Tensigen. The contribution of my Hyuga ancestors? Hayashi looked puzzled, not understanding Shin's words. In short, it's a positive change. Hinata's Byakugan will evolve into the Tensigen, but it will take time. While Shin and Hayashi were talking, Hinata returned, having just visited her mother and younger sister. Shin and I. Hinata ran over to Shin and sat down beside him. Hayashi, watching nearby, felt a pang of discomfort. His own daughter was closer to Shin Uzumaki, an outsider, than to him. It was a bitter feeling. Hinata, did you see your sister? Shin asked Hinata with a smile. Yes, Hanabi is very cute. Thinking of her sister Hanabi, Hinata couldn't help but smile. Could Hinata stay here for a few days? Hayashi asked Shin. That's up to Hinata. Ask her yourself. Shin gestured for Hayashi to ask Hinata directly. Though Shin suspected Hinata would likely refuse, he hoped Hayashi wouldn't be too disappointed. Hinata, what do you think? Hayashi looked at Hinata. Hinata looked up at Shin, then shook her head at Hayashi. Father, I think I'll go back with Shin and II. Just as Shin predicted, Hinata refused Hayashi. Shin couldn't read Hayashi's expression behind his usual stoic mask, but he wondered how Hayashi felt. Hayashi always looked like someone owed him money. Shin, there's something I need to ask of you. Hayashi suddenly stood up, bowed deeply to Shin, and spoke seriously. Bowing first? Are you afraid I'll refuse? Shin asked. Hayashi remained silent. Shin knew he wasn't the most talkative person. Go ahead, tell me what it is. Then I'll consider whether to agree. The Hyuga clan has left Konoha. Although things are okay for now, we can't continue like this indefinitely, Hayashi said gravely. He wanted to discuss the future development of the Hyuga clan. Having left Konoha, they hadn't faced any trouble yet. But Hayashi knew this was because Konoha was preoccupied with its own issues and wary of Shin Uzumaki. This situation wouldn't last forever. The Hyuga clan needed security. What if Konoha decided to attack the Hyuga clan one day? Would they ask Shin Uzumaki for help? Shin might agree the first time, for Hinata's sake, but what about the second or third time? Get to the point. What is the Hyuga clan's objective? Shin interrupted, seeing Hayashi was about to launch into a long speech. Shin wasn't interested in the intricacies of the Hyuga clan's development plans. I plan to lead the Hyuga clan to the Land of Water, to Kirigakure, and take action against them. Hayashi revealed his goal, stunning Shin. Attack Kirigakure? You've got guts. Ambitious plan. Too bad you lack the strength to achieve it. Shin didn't mince words, disregarding Hayashi's pride. In Shin's view, Hayashi was being unrealistic. Even a weakened Kirigakure wasn't something the Hyuga clan could take on alone. Hayashi didn't get angry. He knew they lacked the strength. That was precisely why he was asking Shin for help. I know the Hyuga clan's strength alone is insufficient. That's why I want to ask for your help. Saying this, Hayashi felt his face burn. Making such a request felt somewhat shameless. But for the sake of the Hyuga clan, Hayashi could swallow his pride. His ambition was for the Hyuga clan to prosper forever. Help? I don't work for free, Shin told Hayashi. He wouldn't help for free, he wasn't a tool. Of course. Shin, if you can help the Hyuga clan establish a foothold in Kirigakure, the entire village will be at your disposal, Hayashi promised. He had made up his mind, if relying on Shin Uzumaki could ensure the Hyuga clan's development, so be it. Shin Uzumaki was certainly stronger than Hiruzen Sarutobi. In Konoha, the Hyuga had relied on Hiruzen, practically licking his boots, yet they were ultimately betrayed. Shin stroked his chin. Hayashi's objective was clear. Become the Mizukage and control Kirigakure. And the deal essentially involved Hayashi pledging allegiance, becoming Shin's subordinate. All right. I don't mind lending you a hand. Shin finally nodded. Helping Hayashi offered benefits with no real drawbacks. Most importantly, it required minimal effort from him. Though Kirigakure was a major hidden village, Shin could handle it easily. Thank you, Shin. I won't forget this. Hayashi said solemnly. Shin Uzumaki helping the Hyuga clan made him their benefactor. Hayashi would forever be grateful. I see why you're so ambitious. Your strength has increased. Shin looked at Hayashi, sensing his chakra was much stronger than before. He should be Kage level now. No wonder Hayashi suddenly had such ambition. Without increased strength, Hayashi probably wouldn't have dared. Strength breeds ambition. Chapter 325. Do you even hear yourself talk? When do you plan to move against Kirigakure? Shin asked Hayashi Hyuga. Since Hayashi had brought this up, he must have already formulated a plan. We can depart for Kirigakure at any time. The Hyuga clansmen are prepared, Hayashi replied. I have to ask, why target Kirigakure? Why not another village? Faced with Shin's question, Hayashi was momentarily speechless. Isn't the reason obvious? Because Kirigakure is the weakest. Among the 5 great villages, Kirigakure was currently the weakest. Other villages might not be aware of Kirigakure's internal situation due to its isolation overseas, but the Hyuga clan, having investigated thoroughly, knew. Shortly after defecting from Konoha, Hayashi had begun planning. He dispatched clansmen to gather intelligence on all the major villages. Konoha was definitely out of the question. Hiruzen Sarutobi alone was too much for him. Iwagakure Zanoki was also a difficult opponent. Kumogakure boasted the strongest military force. Hayashi wasn't keen on testing the truth of that claim. As for Sunigakure, even if they could handle Suna, Hayashi looked down on them. The land of wind was vast, but mostly desert. Sunigakure was so poor they were practically tightening their belts to survive. Hayashi naturally held them in contempt. That left only Kirigakure. They currently lacked a Mizukage. Since Yagura's death, the position had remained vacant. It wasn't that no one wanted the title, but Kirigakure simply couldn't elect someone strong enough to command respect. The village was in turmoil, with factions constantly vying for power. Even the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist were fighting amongst themselves for the Mizukage position. Internal strife, no leader, Kirigakure was a mess. That was why Hayashi chose to target them. So, Shin asking why he chose Kirigakure. Hayashi found the question rather pointless. Of course, their perspectives differed. To Hayashi, Kirigakure was the easiest target. To Shin, all the villages were equally weak. Whichever he chose, he could crush them effortlessly. Kirigakure is the weakest. Even against the weakest, I have no confidence without your help. Hayashi admitted helplessly. The Hyuga clan was small. How could they face thousands, even tens of thousands, of ninja? He didn't possess Shin Uzumaki's strength. Even considering attacking Kirigakure required immense courage from Hayashi. Then prepare. We head to Kirigakure now. Let's finish this quickly. Shin instructed Hayashi to prepare. Hayashi nodded and obediently went to make arrangements. In truth, they were already prepared. Hayashi was leading only the elite members of the Hyuga clan, bringing others would be useless. Shin, we're relying entirely on you this time, Hayashi said to Shin. Although he led the Hyuga elite, everything depended on Shin. Hayashi didn't believe his 100+ ninja could face thousands alone. Relax. Don't worry about me screwing you over. There's no benefit for me in doing that. Even if I did screw you over, don't worry too much. I'll take care of your wife and daughter. Shin patted Hayashi's shoulder. Instantly, Hayashi's face turned black. Was that supposed to be reassuring? Considering he couldn't beat Shin, Hayashi swallowed his anger and endured it. Shin then left with Hinata, telling Hayashi to meet him in Kirigakure. Hayashi departed with his clansmen. Returning to Yuzushiogakure, Shin dropped Hinata off and briefly explained the situation to Kushina and the others. The Hyuga clan's ambition is impressive, Konan remarked. Is Kirigakure's Mizukage going to be an outsider now? Mei Terumiya's expression was complicated. Mei had once dreamed of becoming Mizukage, but she had given up on that dream. She was happy with her current life. The Mizukage title held no appeal. Shin and do you want me to go with you? Konan asked Shin. Of course. You're welcome to join. Shin nodded. He was actually looking for someone to accompany him. He hadn't even asked, and Konan had already volunteered. Shin then asked the other women. Tsunade and Makoto expressed no interest. Mei Terumi didn't want to go, as it involved Kirigakure. As for Kushina, though she loved excitement, she felt teaching Karen was more important. Using Yamatsu Hirasaka, Shin appeared inside Kirigakure. He would wait there for Hayashi and his clansmen to arrive. Given their travel speed, they wouldn't arrive until evening at the earliest, and they wouldn't rush. Arriving exhausted wouldn't help them fight. Hayashi Hyuga really trusts you, Shin Nii, Konan commented. Indeed, if Shin betrayed him now, the Hyuga clan would be finished. Konan, are you implying I'm untrustworthy? Shin pinched Konan's cheek. No. I didn't say that. Konan looked at Shin innocently. Yes, Konan didn't say it, but that's what she meant, right? Absolutely not. Konan firmly denied it, seeing Shin's mischievous expression. Her intuition told her admitting it would lead to being teased. Thinking about being teased by Shin, Konan blushed slightly. Strangely, she didn't seem to mind the idea, in fact, she almost looked forward to it. Konan, what are you thinking with your head down? Your face is so red. Don't tell me it's something inappropriate? Shin teased. And nothing. Konan ran ahead shyly, leaving Shin behind. Seeing her expression, Shin already knew the answer. He caught up to Konan. It was only midday, they had plenty of time before the Hyuga arrived. They might as well explore Kirigakure and find some local delicacies. Shin caught up to Konan and took her hand, strolling through Kirigakure. Konan felt a sweet warmth spread through her, holding his hand. She was glad she had come with him. It's been years since Yagura was killed, yet Kirigakure still hasn't chosen a new Mizukage. I wonder how the village is even functioning. Shin mused. Without a leader, who did the ninja listen to? Kirigakure must be in a dysfunctional state. Perhaps the Hyuga clan taking over would actually be good for Kirigakure. But for those currently holding power in Kirigakure, it definitely wouldn't be a good thing. Chapter 326, Let me show you a real spectacle. Night fell. The Hyuga clansmen had arrived in the land of water and were now outside Kirigakure. Big brother, what now? Do we infiltrate Kirigakure? Hizashi asked Hayashi. Yes. We infiltrate now. Try not to be discovered. Hayashi nodded to Hizashi. They had come this far, there was no turning back. Big brother, what if Shin Uzumaki doesn't help us? Hizashi asked hesitantly. He still didn't fully trust Shin. I believe he won't deceive us. Unlike Hizashi, Hayashi trusted Shin implicitly. Without hesitation or apprehension, he led the Hyuga clansmen forward. Kirigakure, being isolated, generally didn't expect danger, so its defenses weren't particularly strict. Furthermore, the village was currently in turmoil. Hayashi led the elite Hyuga ninja. Combined with Kirigakure's lax security, they infiltrated easily. The Byakugan was the ultimate reconnaissance tool, slipping in undetected wasn't surprising. We'll likely be discovered soon. Let's establish our battle plan now, Hayashi addressed his clansmen. Their large group and distinctive Hyuga features made discovery inevitable. As I mentioned before, our primary targets are Kirigakure's high-ranking ninja. We'll split into two groups. I'll lead one, the rest follow Hizashi. Hayashi's plan was clear. Not to conquer Kirigakure, but to eliminate its leadership and then seize control. To achieve their goal, the current Kiri leadership had to be removed. Meanwhile, Shin, savoring a seafood feast, finished the lobster meat Konan offered him. He clapped his hands. The Hyuga clan has arrived in Kirigakure. Shin's Kagura mind's eye, which encompassed the entire village, had detected the Hyuga the moment they entered. Let's go. Shin took Konan's hand and vanished from the restaurant. Instantly, they appeared before Hayashi Hyuga. Hayashi, startled by their sudden appearance, almost attacked instinctively. It's you, Shin. Hayashi relaxed his gentle fist stance, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. Though he'd appeared calm during the infiltration, he had actually been incredibly nervous. They were facing one of the 5 great villages. Even knowing Kirigakure was weakened, Hayashi hadn't been confident. A great village, no matter how weak, still possessed significant underlying strength. It wasn't something a single clan could challenge lightly. Hayashi, sneaking around like this won't work. If you want to control Kirigakure, why be so secretive? Shin asked Hayashi. My plan was to assassinate Kirigakure's high-ranking officials first, then take control. Hayashi briefly explained his plan. Will that work? Kirigakure's leaders are protected by numerous ninja, assassinating them won't be easy. Even if you succeed, new leaders will emerge. Shin shook his head. Killing the current leaders and taking control wouldn't work. The Hyuga were outsiders, entering Kirigakure would face resistance from all Kiri ninja. Even if they killed the current leaders, new ones would be chosen. It was pointless. Then what should we do? Hayashi humbly asked Shin for guidance. Naturally, use the simplest method, fight. Beat them all into submission. Shin disliked scheming now, a direct, forceful approach was better. If he can't be straightforward and overwhelming, what's the point of all this power he's worked so hard to gain? Hayashi blinked, stunned. Shin's suggestion seemed completely unreliable. The Hyuga clan's strength is no match for all the ninja in Kirigakure, Hayashi reminded Shin. I know the Hyuga clan can't take on Kirigakure alone. But you have me. Since you swallowed your pride and asked for my help, I can't just sit back and watch. Shin wanted a simple, brutal resolution. End it quickly and go home. 8 trigrams, Mountain Crusher. Shin gathered chakra and thrust his palm forward. A chakra beam shot out, cutting across half of Kirigakure. Everything in its path disintegrated into dust. The Hyuga clansmen behind Hayashi gulped. If that attack had been aimed at them, their bodies wouldn't even leave ashes behind. Even Hayashi's mouth twitched uncontrollably. Isn't that our Hyuga clan's secret technique? How can it be so terrifyingly powerful? Hayashi knew this technique too, but his version compared to Shin Uzumaki's was like comparing a firefly to the moon. Go bring Hizashi here, Hayashi ordered a clansman, turning his head. Since Shin Uzumaki had done this, assassination was pointless. The entire village of Kirigakure had been alerted. Actually, your Hyuga clan's gentle fist has its merits. It's just that you're too weak to unleash its true power. Shin turned and said to Hayashi. His words pierced Hayashi's heart like daggers. Not just Hayashi, but all the Hyuga clansmen behind him felt a sting of resentment. Their secret technique, the gentle fist, had to be showcased by an outsider to reveal its true potential. It was incredibly frustrating. Shin didn't know that his provocation had inadvertently ignited a fierce determination within these Hyuga clansmen. They resolved to train diligently in the gentle fist. If Shin knew, he'd probably expect Hayashi to thank him for motivating his clan. What do we do next? Hayashi asked Shin. Before, Hayashi could still make decisions. But after Shin's display, he could only follow Shin's lead. Hayashi now saw Shin as their pillar of support. Without Shin, he wouldn't know how to face the Kiri ninja who were surely converging on them. What are you panicking about? You clearly haven't seen a real spectacle. Let me show you a real spectacle. Shin said calmly. Shin could remain calm, but Hayashi truly couldn't. They were about to face all the ninja in Kirigakure. The danger might be even greater than when they defected from Konoha. Back then, they only faced a small number of Konoha ninja, and their goal was just to leave. This was completely different. At this moment, Hayashi wondered, is Shin Uzumaki really reliable? Was trusting him a mistake? Though panicking inwardly, Hayashi forced himself to appear calm like Shin. He could be scared, but he couldn't show it. The Hyuga clansmen behind him were watching. This wasn't just about his own pride, it was about maintaining morale. Chapter 327, Mangetsu Hozuki. Big brother, what happened? Hizashi Hyuga, leading several dozen Hyuga clansmen, returned to find the aftermath of Shin's 8 trigrams, Mountain Crusher. He couldn't help but ask Hayashi what had transpired. Hayashi didn't speak, merely gesturing toward Shin Uzumaki nearby. Hizashi, you've changed quite a bit, Shin observed Hizashi. The most noticeable change was the absence of the caged bird curse seal. Hayashi must have removed it. Perhaps because of this, Hizashi seemed less somber than before. Have I? I think your changes are even greater, Hizashi replied with a wry smile. They had been classmates once. Hisashi never imagined Shin Uzumaki would grow strong enough to command fear throughout the shinobi world. We've likely been discovered by Kirigakure. What's your plan? Hisashi asked Shin, probing for his intentions. I know you're worried. But your brother trusted me, asked for my help. I won't disappoint you. Shin's gaze drifted towards the distance. Kirigakure ninja were rapidly approaching. Honestly, their reaction speed was rather slow. If this were any other hidden village, the commotion would have drawn attention much sooner. Who are you? The arriving Kiri ninja demanded upon seeing Shin and the others. Shin almost wanted to ask if they were blind. Even at night, under the bright moonlight, couldn't they see the obvious Byakugan? Such intense killing intent. Hayashi Hyuga's expression turned grave. He could sense the ferocious bloodlust radiating from the arriving Kiri ninja. It was normal. Most ninja in Kirigakure at this time had lived through the Bloody Mist era. It was natural for them to possess intense killing intent. Compared to Shin's, however, theirs was negligible. Paper release, paper rain. Without needing Shin to act, Konan unleashed her secret paper ninjutsu, instantly reaping the lives of the incoming ninja. These Kiri ninja were weak, unable to withstand the paper rain attack. But they were just cannon fodder. The truly powerful Kirigakure ninja were yet to arrive. Shin didn't have to wait long. Kirigakure's high-ranking officials soon arrived, glaring murderously at Shin and his group. The Hyuga clan? Seeing the Hyuga, the Kiri leaders frowned. But when they saw Shin, their expressions turned to panic. Shin Uzumaki. Can't even speak properly. Shin looked disdainfully at a Kiri elder who had collapsed onto his backside in terror. Many in Kirigakure recognized Shin. They had suffered heavy losses at his hands. The third Mizukichi had died by his blade. Even the Bloody Mist era orchestrated by Obito hadn't caused as much death and destruction in Kirigakure as Shin had. Since you know who I am, I'll spare you the pleasantries. From now on, Hayashi Hyuga is the Mizukichi of Kirigakure. Who agrees? Who objects? Shin's expression was indifferent, his tone flat. The Kirigakure officials were enraged. I object. One of the Kiri elders immediately voiced his opposition. Paper spear. A spear formed from compressed paper instantly shot forward, piercing the objecting elder through the heart. Killing him instantly. Object to Shin Nii's words, and you die, Konan stated coolly. Hayashi Hyuga couldn't help but glance at Konan. This is Kirigakure. How dare you run wild here? Avenge the second elder. The enraged Kiri ninja ignored everything else and attacked Konan with ninjutsu. Shin Nii, let me handle this, Konan said to Shin. If you want to, go ahead. Shin nodded. With Konan's strength, dealing with them would be effortless. Can she really handle it? Hayashi Hyuga couldn't help but question. More than 10 ninja had attacked simultaneously. Even he would have to evade such an assault. Flying Thunder God, guiding thunder. Konan used the Flying Thunder God technique, instantly redirecting all the water release attacks aimed at her. The Flying Thunder God technique? The Hyuga brothers' eyes nearly popped out of their sockets in shock. Thanks to Minato Namikaze, the Flying Thunder God technique was famous throughout the shinobi world. Minato had used it to strike fear into the hearts of ninja from every village. Water release, water dragon bite explosion. As Konan formed hand seals, a water vortex appeared on the ground. Countless streams of water shot into the sky like bullets, capable of piercing human bodies. After killing several unlucky ninja, the water streams converged in the sky, forming a giant dragon that roared and dove downwards. Boom! The resulting waves surged 10 meters high. Dozens of Kiri ninja perished in this single water release attack. Is that an S-rank water release jutsu? Hayashi Hyuga couldn't help but ask, stunned by its power. Yes, it was indeed an S-rank water release ninjutsu, a technique left behind by Tobirama Senju. Among S-rank techniques, its power was considered quite high. Tobirama Senju's character aside, the numerous jutsu he created were undeniably powerful. Besides his world-renowned water release techniques, the Flying Thunder God technique, Edo Tensei, and Shadow Clone technique were all his creations. Hiramakari release. A white-haired ninja, looking quite young, wielded the released twin swords Hiramakari and charged towards Conan. The twin swords, Hiramakari was one of the 7 ninja swordsman's blades. Each of the 7 swords had unique abilities, and Hiramakari likely possessed the greatest offensive power. The entire Hiramakari glowed with blue light, the color of chakra. The chakra gathered, forming a hammer-like shape that swung towards Conan. However, Conan possessed the Flying Thunder God technique. The attack struck empty air. "Are you Mangetsu Hozuki?" Shin asked the ninja. "The legendary Reaper of the Shinobi world knows my name? I'm honored." Mangetsu Hozuki looked up at Shin. Legendary? Legends were usually dead. Shin had no desire to become one. In the original story, Mangetsu Hozuki was a mysterious genius capable of skillfully wielding all 7 ninja swords. No one knew his true strength or how he died. "Shin nii, do you know him? Should I kill him?" Conan asked Shin. Since Shin seemed to know this person, Conan hesitated to attack. "Yes, kill him." Shin wasn't concerned. Since Mangetsu had attacked, he was an enemy. In the original story, Mangetsu Hozuki's death was unknown. Now, it was clear he would be killed by Conan. Though Mangetsu Hozuki was rumored to be a genius of immense strength, facing Conan, he stood no chance of survival. Chapter 328, ending it with one slash. Conan looked coldly at Mangetsu Hozuki. Since Shin had ordered his death, she would carry it out. Conan was typically cold towards outsiders, only showing her gentle side to Shin. Die. Countless pieces of paper converged, forming a massive shuriken in Conan's hand. Using the Flying Thunder God technique, she instantly appeared behind Mangetsu Hozuki, the paper shuriken slashing through him. It could cut through steel, let alone a human body. However, Mangetsu wasn't afraid of such attacks. As a member of the Hozuki clan, he possessed their secret technique, the hydrification technique. This jutsu allowed him to liquefy his body at will, rendering physical attacks ineffective, much like a Logia devil fruit user's elemental transformation in one piece. But it had weaknesses. Lightning release was its bane, it could turn the user into a jelly-like sculpture. Fire release, if strong enough, could evaporate the water. Mangetsu used the technique to narrowly escape death. Conan was momentarily surprised. "Everyone, attack." Don't tell me the combined strength of Kirigakure can't defeat Shin Uzumaki. His power is just a rumor. Attack together. One of the Kiri elders rallied the ninja, urging them to attack Shin collectively. Still refusing to see the truth even when faced with death. Shin observed them. If they had simply accepted his terms earlier, they might have survived. Susanoo. While Susanoo wasn't Shin's strongest technique, it was one of the most intimidating. Only Tengai Shinsei and would release Sage Art, true several thousand hands surpassed its visual impact. Other techniques, like the truth-seeking orbs, were powerful but appeared unassuming, lacking deterrent effect against those unaware of their true power. The 100-meter-tall black Susanoo materialized, its mere presence, its overwhelming pressure, froze the Kiri ninja in their tracks. For the older Kiri ninja, this wasn't their first time seeing Susanoo. The memory of its terrifying, world-destroying power instantly resurfaced. Fear gripped them before the battle even began. Seeing Susanoo, some wanted to drop their weapons and surrender. Such a terrifying thing, a single stomp could probably cause mountains to crumble and the earth to split. No wonder Shin Uzumaki became the strongest in the shinobi world. Hisashi Hyuga's eyes filled with envy. He yearned for such power, though he knew it was unattainable for him. Conan glanced at Shin Susanoo, then refocused on Mangetsu Hozuki. She had to finish him off, otherwise, she wouldn't be able to face herself. Fire release, Great Flame Rasengan. A ball of fire radiating terrifying heat formed in Conan's hand. The air around it scorched instantly. Mangetsu's eyes filled with fear. Normally, he wouldn't fear fire release, water counters fire. But now, he wouldn't dare claim water countered fire. Sweat dripped down his face, his hydrofication technique left him severely dehydrated. Mangetsu tried to flee, but Konan had already marked him with a Flying Thunder God formula. Escape was impossible. Teleporting behind Mangetsu, Konan slammed the orange fireball down. Mangetsu was instantly vaporized, leaving only the twin swords, Hiramakarei clattering to the ground. Konan glanced at Hiramakarei but ignored it. She had no interest in the ninja sword. Firstly, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing. Konan disliked strangely shaped weapons. Like most women, appearance mattered to her. This sword lacked visual appeal, so she didn't like it. As Konan finished off Mangetsu Ozuki, Shin controlled his Susanoo and swung its sword. The perfect body Susanoo could easily cleave mountains. The Kirigakure elders and other high-ranking officials were all killed in that single slash. More than half of the Kiri ninja who had rushed over perished. The very terrain of Kirigakure was altered by Shin's attack, a long canyon carved into the land. Hundreds of Kiri ninja had arrived, yet more than half were lost in a single strike. Shin had intentionally spared the survivors. If he had gotten serious, he could have sliced the entire village in half, resulting in far greater casualties. The surviving ninja knelt on the ground, their eyes vacant, devoid of light. Though this single strike hadn't killed them, it had shattered their courage. See? I told you it was simple. What else do you want to do? Shin deactivated Susanoo and addressed Hayashi Hyuga. Now was Hayashi's time to step up and subdue the remaining ninja. Honestly, if Shin's goal had been simply to deal with Kirigakure, rather than helping Hayashi take control, a single Super Shinra Tensei would have sufficed to level the entire village. Is it over just like that? Hayashi finally snapped back to reality. This was the first time he had witnessed Shin's true power firsthand. And what he saw might only be the tip of the iceberg. Yet even this glimpse filled Hayashi with utter dread. Now you just need to subdue them, then figure out how to handle the rest of the Kirigakure ninja. These were the elites of Kirigakure. If Hayashi could subdue them, the rest would likely follow. Hayashi nodded and approached the remaining Kiri ninja, attempting to win their allegiance. He had expected it to be difficult, but it turned out surprisingly easy. Perhaps terrified by Shin, they readily submitted to Hayashi. Handle the rest yourself. If you run into trouble you can't handle, come find me. I'll be staying in the village for a while. Shin informed Hayashi, then took Konan's hand and left. Now was the test of Hayashi's ability. If he couldn't manage this, even with Shin's help, it would be pointless. Kirigakure's top fighters were mostly eliminated. With the surrender of these remaining ninja, Hayashi now had the foundation to control the village. Shin paid no further attention, taking Konan to find an inn to rest. In the midst of Kirigakure's chaos, perhaps only Shin and Konan could remain so calm. The inn they found was deserted, even the owner had fled. Konan, it's just the two of us tonight. Rest well, Shin said with a smile, looking at the blushing Konan. Konan looked at Shin's slightly wicked smile and lowered her head, feeling a flutter of nervousness. Though they were practically a married couple by now, Konan still felt shy at moments like these. Shin, however, found Konan's shyness quite charming. Chapter 329, I think you two were having too much fun. A week passed in the blink of an eye. Shin and Konan had been in Kirigakure for 7 days. By now, the Hyuga clan had essentially taken control of the village. Initially, Hayashi Hyuga had been moving slowly, but Shin, growing impatient, used a large-scale genjutsu to hypnotize and subdue the remaining resistance, resolving the situation quickly. This left Hayashi feeling somewhat unnerved whenever he saw Shin. Hypnotizing and brainwashing thousands of people with genjutsu, it was terrifying. What level of mastery did one need to achieve such a feat? If Shin knew Hayashi's thoughts, he'd likely laugh. Compared to infinite Tsukuyomi, which can trap the entire world in an illusion, this is nothing. Didn't expect Kirigakure to have this kind of book. Shin held a book in his hand. Konan, curious, glanced over. As soon as she saw the cover, her face flushed red. Just from the title, she knew it wasn't wholesome literature. Indeed, it wasn't. It was the famous Ika Ika Paradise, written by Jiraiya himself. "Shopkeeper, I'll take this one." "How much?" Shin asked the bookstall owner. The book wasn't cheap, 100 ryo. Shin was surprised. Jiraiya must be making a fortune. Shin bought it anyway. He wasn't short on cash, the price didn't matter. He was genuinely curious about the contents of Ika Ika Paradise. It was Kakashi Hataki's favorite book. Shin wanted to see what all the fuss was about. "Shin and why did you buy a book like that?" Conan looked at Shin, her image of him plummeting slightly. "Ahem, just curious. Consider it a contribution to Jiraiya's royalties." "You're saying this book was written by Jiraiya, one of the Sannin?" Conan's expression turned peculiar. Jiraiya, who shared the title of Sannin with Tsunade, wrote this kind of book? What a degenerate! In fact, the Sannin were rather degenerate. Tsunade was better now, having reformed. If Tsunade still gambled, Shin would likely be bankrupt. No matter how much money he had, he couldn't keep up with her spending habits. Tsunade's gambling was basically just giving money away. She almost never won. Of course, if she did win, it usually meant big trouble was brewing. Let's go. Time to return to the land of whirlpools. The situation here was resolved. Shin didn't want to stay in Kirigakure any longer, the environment was unpleasant. Staying for a week, Shin finally understood why it was called the village hidden in the mist. 6 out of 7 days were foggy. Though the fog usually only appeared in the morning and evening, it was still uncomfortable. It wasn't smog from industrial pollution, but water vapor. While odorless, it left clothes damp and clingy. In comparison, the land of whirlpools, also an island nation, rarely experienced heavy fog. Shin found it much more pleasant than Kirigakure. "Shin and do you think Kushin and Ichin and the others will be angry when we get back?" Conan asked Shin. "Don't worry. They probably won't be angry, but definitely annoyed. After being gone for so long, Kushina and the others would likely be a bit upset. Let's head back first and see." Shin took Conan's hand, returning home. Spacetime ninjutsu was truly convenient. "We're back." Hearing Shin's voice, Hinata immediately ran out, her face beaming with joy. "Shin and Hinata relied heavily on Shin, perhaps because he spent the most time with her. "You finally decided to come back. If you hadn't returned soon, we were going to Kirigakure to drag you back," Kushina said, her voice laced with resentment. Just as expected, Kushina was annoyed. And she wasn't the only one. "It couldn't be helped, we were busy with important matters," Shin said, sitting down. "Important matters? You've lost yourselves into play, haven't you?" Tsunade said, glancing pointedly at Shin. "Shin, if you really wanted to come back, you could have taken a moment to visit," Makoto added quietly. Shin rubbed his nose and decided not to explain further. Honestly, he and Conan had enjoyed their time in Kirigakure. "Oh, by the way, Shin and I bought." Before Conan could finish, Shin quickly covered her mouth. He knew she was about to mention Ika Ika Paradise. He absolutely couldn't let her say it. His image was already tarnished enough, revealing that would shatter it completely. "Conan, don't say it. Or face the consequences," Shin whispered softly in her ear, ensuring only she could hear. Conan looked at Shin with teary eyes, then nodded. Threatened, she couldn't reveal the truth. "Why did you stop mid-sentence? Were you threatened?" Mei Terumi asked Conan. Mei was incredibly curious, she desperately wanted to know what Shin had bought. "No," Conan glanced at Shin, then shook her head, her expression perfectly natural. Seeing Conan's convincing performance, Shin nodded approvingly. Her acting skills had improved. "There's definitely something going on." "Conan, really, you can't tell us?" Mei Terumi wasn't the only curious one, Kushina was too. Her curiosity was just as strong. In fact, Tsunade and Makoto were also curious, though they didn't show it as obviously as Kushina and Mei Terumi. Shin and I bought some special Kirigakure delicacies, but we ate them all on the way back, so it's a bit embarrassing to talk about. Conan quickly fabricated a reason, trying to placate them. Whether Kushina and the others truly believed her, only they knew. Shin breathed a sigh of relief, his image temporarily salvaged. He swore he'd only bought Jiraiya's Ika Paradise out of pure curiosity. He wanted to know what Jiraiya's writing level was like, simply to appreciate his literary skills. He had no other intentions. After all, Shin had experienced all sorts of knowledge. He was mainly curious about the book in the original story. Even Kakashi treated it like a treasure, practically burying his nose in it. Shin couldn't help but be curious too. Shin considered himself a top-tier connoisseur in that department. He wanted to see what level Jiraiya's popular book truly reached. Though Shin suspected it probably wasn't anything special. Chapter 330, Don't You Care About Looks? Shin skimmed through Ika Paradise, then tossed it aside, disappointed. Though he hadn't expected much, he found it utterly bland. Compared to the works he'd encountered in his previous life, it didn't even come close. He had zero interest in the book now. Besides, as a winner in life surrounded by beautiful women, did he really need to read this kind of stuff? Should I go to Tsunade's room tonight? Or Kushina's? Or perhaps Makoto's? Mei Terumi isn't a bad option either. While Shin was preoccupied with those thoughts, the entire shinobi world, specifically, the other 4 great villages, was reeling in shock. Hayashi Hyuga became the Mizukage of Kirigakure? Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't believe it. It wasn't that he looked down on Hayashi Hyuga, he simply hadn't paid him much attention. But Hayashi's recent actions had surprised Hiruzen repeatedly. First, the clan-wide defection, and now becoming the Mizukage of Kirigakure. Hiruzen wondered how Hayashi had managed it. Shin Uzumaki must be involved. After contemplating for a while, Hiruzen concluded that Hayashi becoming Mizukage was definitely related to Shin Uzumaki. Otherwise, with Hayashi's strength alone, Hiruzen wouldn't believe for a second that he could become Mizukage. Danzo also received the news and felt incredibly resentful. That insignificant Hayashi Hyuga is actually doing better than him now? The Mizukage title was, after all, equal in status to the Hokage. Although Kirigakure's strength couldn't compare to Konoha's, their ranks were equivalent. Seeing someone he'd always looked down upon achieve such a position naturally infuriated Danzo. Anger needed an outlet. So, Danzo secretly plotted against Hiruzen Sarutobi, dispatching root operatives to assassinate him. Of course, Danzo's plan failed. Hiruzen Sarutobi, a renowned powerhouse, wasn't easily assassinated. Though Hiruzen knew Danzo was behind it, he ultimately did nothing. He lacked concrete proof, it was only suspicion. However, Hiruzen felt heartbroken. He considered Danzo an old friend, yet Danzo wanted him dead. The other major villages were also shocked by Hayashi Hyuga becoming Mizukage. What was going on in Kirigakure? Even if Hayashi led the Hyuga clan to join Kirigakure, they were still outsiders. How could an outsider become Mizukage? They didn't know the details, but Kirigakure was now firmly labeled as weak. Kumogakure, located across the sea from the Land of Water, even considered attacking Kirigakure. However, upon learning Shin Uzumaki was involved behind the scenes, they immediately cancelled their plans. The entire village of Kumogakure held a grudge against Shin, especially the 4th Raikage, who hated Shin to the bone. But they knew their limits. Hatred was one thing, reality was another. They were no match for Shin. Although I had a fiery temper, as a Kage, he was rational when it mattered. Even if he was willing to risk his life, he couldn't drag his village down with him. Having taken on the mantle of Kage, he had to bear the responsibility. Until he possessed sufficient strength, revenge was out of the question. Hayashi Hyuga becoming Mizukage didn't cause major ripples in the shinobi world. No village made any significant moves. Konoha and Kumogakure were wary of Shin Uzumaki, or rather, intimidated by him. Iwagakure and Sunagakure, even if they wanted to intervene, were too far away, especially Sunagakure. the shinobi world entered a period of relative calm. The major villages, still recovering from the Third Shinobi World War, avoided friction. Shin also had no interest in stirring up trouble. Once the main storyline began, there would be plenty of events. His current focus was teaching Hinata and Karen. Actually, it was mostly just Hinata. Kushina had taken Karen away, insisting on training her personally. Even though Karen was reluctant, she couldn't refuse Kushina and had no choice but to follow. "Makoto, have your eyes changed at all?" Shin asked Makoto. 3 years ago, Shin had sealed the ocular power of one Tensigen into Makoto's eyes. By now, she should have completely absorbed and integrated that power. Shin wanted to know if there were any signs of her eyes evolving into the Rinnegan. "No, I don't feel anything," Makoto replied, shaking her head. "Let nature take its course. I don't really care about my eyes evolving." Makoto smiled gently. She wasn't fond of conflict and had little ambition. Whether her eyes evolved or not didn't matter much to her. Makoto had always maintained a peaceful, contented attitude. "That's fine. The Rinnegan isn't easy to awaken, and it's kind of ugly." The Rinnegan was undoubtedly powerful, but in terms of aesthetics, Shin felt it couldn't compare to the Sharingan. "You think the Rinnegan is ugly? Now I definitely don't want it," Makoto said, turning to look at Shin. "Didn't expect you to care so much about looks, Makoto," Shin shrugged. "Don't you care about looks?" Makoto rolled her eyes at Shin, leaving him speechless. "Even if the Rinnegan is ugly, it only shows when you use it. No need to worry. The Rinnegan awakened naturally could be deactivated, unlike Nagato's transplanted eyes, which were derived from Madara Uchihas. Those couldn't be turned off voluntarily. It was similar to Kakashi Hataki's Sharingan. Because it wasn't his original eye, he had to keep it active constantly. This was one reason for Kakashi's limited chakra reserves. Having a 3-tomo Sharingan constantly draining chakra naturally reduced the amount available for combat. In a way, Kakashi's Sharingan, while enhancing his abilities, also limited his potential. Without the Sharingan, Kakashi's talent likely would have allowed him to reach Kage level. But the topic was straying. They were discussing the Rinnegan. "How is Hinata doing? Any signs of her Tensigen awakening?" Makoto asked. Hinata's eyes now showed a hint of blue within the white, like faint blue pupils, though it wasn't obvious without close inspection. "Not yet. Hinata's eyes still hold a large amount of sealed ocular power. With her current strength, she can't digest it all yet." Shin shook his head. However, he was 100% confident Hinata would eventually awaken the Tensigen. Her Byakugan was exceptionally pure, evolution was practically guaranteed. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.